Language learning. 1. What are the advantages and disadvantages of learning a language? I think the biggest advantage is that it opens up more opportunities. Being able to speak another language can help people study abroad, get better jobs, and communicate with people from different cultures. For instance, many multinational companies prefer candidates who can speak English because they often work with international clients. The main disadvantage is that learning a language takes a lot of time and commitment. People need to practice regularly, and it can be frustrating when they don't see immediate progress. That's why many learners give up before becoming fluent. 2. Some people think that technology has made it unnecessary to learn languages. What do you think? I don't agree with that idea. Although translation apps have become much more accurate, they can't replace real communication. Language is not just about translating words, but also about understanding culture, emotions, and social situations. Imagine attending an international business meeting. Even if you have a translation app, speaking the language yourself helps you build trust and communicate much more naturally. 3. What difficulties do people face when learning a language? I think the biggest challenge is maintaining discipline over a long period of time. Most people start learning a language with a lot of motivation, but that excitement usually fades after a few weeks or months. At that point, making progress depends more on consistent practice than enthusiasm. For example, many learners begin with ambitious goals, such as studying every day, but gradually skip lessons because of work or school commitments, or simply because they don't feel like it. As a result, their progress slows down and some eventually give up altogether. 4. Do you think language learning is important? Why? Yes, absolutely. I think learning a language is essential because it gives people a significant advantage in their careers. In today's job market, employers are often willing to pay much more for candidates who can communicate in English, especially when they work with international clients or partners. For example, in Vietnam, in many companies, employees who are fluent in English can earn 50% higher to even twice as much as those with similar qualifications and positions, but without good language skills. 5. Which is better, to study a language alone or to study it in a group? Why? Personally, I think studying in a group is more effective. First, it gives learners more opportunities to use the language. Instead of just memorizing vocabulary or grammar rules, they can practice speaking, ask questions, and learn from each other's mistakes. Second, your classmates can become your accountability partners, making it much harder to procrastinate or give up halfway through. 6. What's the best way to learn a language? I think the best way is to use the language every day in real-life situations. Learning becomes much more effective when people actively use what they've learned, instead of just studying textbooks. For example, someone learning English could watch videos, listen to podcasts, keep a daily journal, and have regular conversations with other learners or native speakers. Over time, the language becomes a natural part of their daily routine, rather than just another school subject.
Decision-making. 1. Do you think children sometimes have to make important decisions? Yes, I do. Although most major decisions are made by parents, children still need to make some important choices as they grow older. Making decisions helps them become more independent and responsible. For example, they may have to decide which extracurricular activities to join or whether to focus on sports, music, or academics. These choices can shape their interests and even influence their future careers. 2. What important decisions do teenagers need to make after graduation? I think the biggest decision is choosing what they want to do next. This could mean going to university, attending a vocational school, or entering the workforce straight away. Since each option leads to a different career path, teenagers need to think carefully about their interests, abilities, and long-term goals. Making the right decision at this stage can have a lasting impact on their future. 3. Who can children turn to for help when making a decision? I think parents are usually the first people children turn to because they have the most life experience and genuinely want the best for their children. They can explain the advantages and disadvantages of different options instead of simply telling children what to do. For example, if a child is choosing between two schools, parents can help them compare the learning environment, the distance from home, and future opportunities before making a decision. 4. Do you think advertisements can influence our decisions when shopping? Yes, definitely. I think advertisements are designed to make products look more attractive than they actually are. By using celebrities' endorsement, emotional stories, or limited time offers, they create the impression that buying the product will improve our lives. As a result, people sometimes buy things they didn't originally plan to purchase. 5. Do you think the influence of advertising is good? I think it depends on how advertisements are used. When they provide accurate information, they help consumers compare products and make informed decisions. For example, advertisements for new smartphones often introduce useful features that help buyers choose a model that suits their needs. However, if companies exaggerate the benefits of their products, advertisements can encourage unnecessary spending and create unrealistic expectations. 6. How do people usually make important decisions? I think most people make important decisions by gathering as much information as possible before reaching a conclusion. They often compare different options, weigh the pros and cons, and ask for advice from people they trust. For instance, someone buying a house is likely to spend weeks researching prices, visiting different properties, and discussing the decision with family members before making such a major financial commitment.
Teamwork. 1. Why do some people prefer to work by themselves? I think the main reason is that they can work more efficiently on their own. When people work alone, they don't have to wait for others or spend time discussing every decision. As a result, they can stay focused and complete tasks more quickly. For example, many programmers or writers prefer working independently because they need long periods of uninterrupted concentration to produce their best work. 2. What should a leader do to make team members want to follow him or her? I think a good leader should earn their team's trust. People are much more willing to follow someone who is fair, supportive, and willing to take responsibility. To illustrate, if a project doesn't go as planned, a good leader won't simply blame the team. Instead, they'll help solve the problem and support everyone through the difficult situation. That kind of leadership naturally earns people's respect. 3. Should students learn to do group work? Yes, definitely. I think group work helps students develop teamwork skills, which are essential in most workplaces. In real life, employees rarely work completely on their own, so students should learn how to communicate, share responsibilities, and solve disagreements with others. 4. What group tasks are there in schools? I think project-based assignments are the most common group tasks in schools. Instead of working individually, students have to research a topic, prepare a presentation, or write a report together. Take a science project as an example. One student might collect information, another designs the slides, while someone else gives the presentation. By working together, they learn how to cooperate and make use of each person's strengths.